Hello, this is National Chess Master Rats back at chess.com to continue my video series of the team match, correspondence team match between my video lessons group and CARPE DIEM. This is played on board 137. We have like high 1700s versus low mid 1600 rating advantage, and our man is Panzer 62. So let's have a look, see what happens. We're leading the match, my team 167 to 58. 210.5 points is all that's needed for a match win. Okay, so both sides are developing slowly and carefully. There's really not much happening here. The game is essentially equal. And it actually follows book for quite some time. And naturally, there's a lot of ways to diverge from book. But I'm happy to see a correspondence game where the players are playing the move straight out of the opening theory. Because this will help you get a good solid position. If you deviate too early from opening theory, you might be deviating for reasons that you don't expect. In other words, if you just see a move and play it like so many people play quick in their correspondence games, disaster could be right at your doorstep. But White makes an unusual choice here in a little bit, and we'll see that in just a few moves. Now, A4 is played to restrain B5 because White's goal is to eventually recollect this pawn on C4. But things are going to change here in just a moment. A5, and so far Black hasn't, or White hasn't recollected his pawn. He can't at the moment, but he probably can with careful play. And I'm not going to sit here and analyze all the ideas. You want to get this knight to D2 probably, or E5. That'll get this pawn. I'm not sure what all the book says here, but White ends up selecting making a poor choice here. We'll see it in a moment. And now here we're going to have it. White makes a move which basically lets Black keep his pawn. I don't quite understand it. Possibly the bishop was misplaced on F4. What should White do? Maybe put the bishop on G5, bring it back to D2. I don't know. You know, there's a lot of analysis to it. But White makes a puzzling choice here. He captures on D5, which basically allows Black to hang on to his pawn plus. Now, Black's a little cramped. His light squared bishop is not all that great, but he finds a way to put it to use. With the center locked like this, it's going to be hard for White to attack Black's king. And I think in the long run, White is going to get ground down. I think this is just basically a losing proposition for White. White goes over and guards A2, or A4 rather. Black puts the pressure on. And now the queen is no longer attacking A4, but it will be in a moment. And really, what's White have? He doesn't really have any recourse here. He's about to lose another pawn. So there it goes. Now he's down 2 pawns. And I'm really not seeing, and more, I'm really not seeing what White has in compensation. By playing F4, he's also walked into a skewer. You know, the queen has to move, and you have to pick up the rook on D1. Well, White opts to just give up that rook, and Black's happy, or White gives up that rook. Black's happy to just trade down because liquidation will win the game quickly, and strangely enough, White just allows it. Aside from a couple of missteps, White's played a reasonable game, but this is just turning into a rout for Black. White has no play whatsoever. Now Black has 3 connected pass pawns, and one of them is becoming extremely dangerous. And there's really nothing White can do. There's no counterplay. And the game is going to end here in just a move or two. And now White misses let's see. Well, he prevents the fork, but knight A2 is decisive. Now White must give up a rook for the pawn on C2. So let's just take it back for a moment and kind of play with this for a little bit. So otherwise this video is going to be awful short. Let's take it back to the last chance he had to save his to go after this pawn. Let's do this. Let's put the bishop on g5. It's kind of a crummy bishop for white. There's a lot of pawns in the way. And now the objective is to trade it and just get it off the board. Now, white's next objective is to get this knight to d2 so that he can recollect this pawn. So let's assume black takes the bishop just to keep that knight away from hitting c4. Well, it might not even be the greatest idea, because now suddenly a new option comes up, e4 and d6, a new path. So maybe it was a mistake to take on g5, but we'll just go with it. d3 is a possibility for black to try to plunk a knight on. Let's go ahead and allow it, see if it gets anywhere. Okay, now both sides have knights entrenched in the heart of each other's position. But I'm kind of liking white here. You know, this line isn't force. It's just analysis. This is how you analyze the game. You switch off some moves. Now at least white's getting his pawn back, and the dust is cleared. And I think we still have a game of chess to be played. Okay. But clearly white needed to go back and collect his pawn. And instead, you know, he just basically gave back the pawn and had nothing to show for it. So we're going to load up the other game. And take it back to the beginning. We have another queen pawn opening. Again, not much going on. King's Indian defense. Now this, unfortunately, what's going to happen is black's just going to blunder. Here he's trying to get the f5 break in. Usually, you know, when you try to get the knight to h5, you're trying to not only get f5 in, you're hoping to get f4 in too, and that knight would ideally be able to take back if there was a pawn capture g takes f4. But in a way, it's kind of premature, and we'll see why here in a moment. Now, black opts to capture on d4, but you see this opens up a diagonal for the white queen, and black immediately butchers the game. Pawn takes, and black must lose at least a pawn, but black just blunders his knight away. I mean, look at this. I'll come back to this point. We'll talk about the game in a bit, but black has just blundered the game away. White's a clear piece up. Black has no compensation for it. And if anyone's getting an attack, it's going to be white, because black has exposed his king to some degree. The d5 square is looking ominous for a bishop check or sink a knight there. Then the knight can transfer to f4, menacing the king side. I mean, white can play bishop h6, trying to trade off any defender near the black king. You know, it's just looking good for white. And really, there's not much more to this game. I'm just going to kind of run through the moves. Okay, he's got an attack on d4, but that's easy to take care of. Now the knight can come into d5, although he opts not to. It can still do it. There it does. Now you're threatening c7, and as well as a knight fork on e7. So black's in trouble, and white's got such a strong position he didn't even have to stop and collect the pawn on c7. He just continues his development. And now black weakens his king side. And now he weakens d6 to save his pawn. But white has other ideas. Let's MrYucky. I'm going to attack your queen. You don't have time to take my knight. And now he steps into a fork. Whoops. And suddenly, black is just a whole rook down without anything to show for it. And the game is going to end here real quick. I think black makes one more blunder. We'll see it here in a moment. Yeah, here it is. He needs to take with the pawn, and watch what happens. He takes with the queen. So clearly, at the wrong points, black was moving too quick, and the knight fork brings the house down. So let's back it up to this point. Question: Is this theory? Yeah, I imagine it is. Is knight h5 theory? I would say probably that is too. So let's just say that it's theory. Let's just say that black wants to get f5 in. How should he go about doing it? Okay, well, one way you can do it is to do it right now. But, of course, until white plays, let me rephrase that. Until white plays d5, f5 has less sting. So, what if black just delays f5 and wants to keep his knight here, just for the sake of having it ready to come into play if need be? What if black plays a more solid move? Let's activate his pieces. Let's look at knight e5. Now, what does this do? Well, it does a few things. Right now, there's a threat on the pawn on c4. Could white maybe make a nuisance out of himself with queen b6 in response? Yeah, possibly. I don't know. I mean, it's just the first thing that comes up to my mind. So white has two choices. Let black take on c4, and then play queen b3, or just protect the pawn with b3 and see what black has in mind. So this is how you analyze the game. We have 2 plans for white. If you're playing black here, you're trying to make sure that white doesn't get anywhere with this line. So how can white take advantage of black? For instance, if black taking on c4 is a bad idea. Well, the first move we want to look at is f4. Why f4? Well, that just attacks the knight, doesn't give black a chance to do anything else, and makes him take it. Now queen b3. We have a pin. Hey, you know what? It looks like the pin works. Bishop e6 fails because knight takes e6. Does black have any counterplay on anything? Doesn't look like it. So before black plays knight e5 or takes on d5, maybe he needs to park his king on h8. Get it off that diagonal. It spins the tempo, but it also clears g8 in case black ever opens up the g file. It clears g8. What can white do? I think the moment white plays d5, though, that allows black to play the thematic f5 break. Okay, and I think black should do okay here. He's got just a reasonable chance of winning this game as white does. White needs to set up a c5 break. There you have it. So white doesn't have to play d5, though. There's no rule making him play. What if he just develops a piece? Nothing wrong with developing a piece. Okay, let's see. Let's do this. Now for the fun of it, let's take this, because now if f4, we don't have to take on c4. We can bring it here. Now we're menacing this bishop. If it comes here, suddenly maybe there's some counter shots here, attacking the knight on d4. Nothing forced in this, but it's just an idea of how you start analyzing a position. And again, I would imagine there are plenty of game examples stemming from where were we? From this position right here. I imagine this is theory, and if black had taken his time, he could have looked up and found a proper way to play it, because certainly the way it turned out, he just lost a piece quick. Anyway, some of these videos are going to be a little longer than others. It just depends on what's interesting. I do thank you for taking the time to look at them. Keep up the series. You'll see a lot of ideas, how to handle certain openings, how to look games up, how to analyze. You never know what's going to show up. It all depends on each game, the different motifs that will come up in a game of chess, whether it be proper development in the opening, getting castle quick, how to conduct a middle game, or even an in-game play. We hope to have it all here. There'll be a lot more videos in this series. I'm still catching up. Bear with me, and I thank you so much for your time. Take care.